just FYI for what that's for. So just going through it from the winter sports, again, a slew of kids received Mid-State League and Central District honors. We have one All-State honoree in the winter. That was Chloe Davis with girls basketball. She was second team. And the girls basketball team won the first district championship in school history. So
you notice how those are highlighted for some reason.
Right.
Is that the
overcame coaching to get there?
Is that the first, second team go with that?
No, because we've had some first teamers too. Okay. Yeah, she's hoping to go that route this year. So,
but she doesn't want to play college basketball.
Well, I don't know. I talked with 2 collegiate coaches this week about her. Yeah, so she's she's got lots of interest. I'll say.
Oh, I bet she does.
Yeah. So, spring sports went really well for us. Baseball won the league. And you can see the numbers, sheer numbers with first team and second team athletes. We had 11 first team, 21 second team. A lot of that can be attributed. We have massive track and field numbers, both the middle school and the high school levels. That's trickling over to cross country as well. Cross country, I venture to say cross country is as big as it's ever been. This fall, it should be in the neighborhood of 45 to 50 kids. That's 7 through 12. He'll have upwards of 20 at the high school level, which I know, at least in my tenure, we've never ever been close to that. So those 2 programs are flourishing, and that's tribute to all those coaches. They do a great job recruiting kids. They're active with the kids. They have a variety of cross-country camp for the first time. It seems to be pretty well taken by the parents, so they've done really well. Lots of Central District honorees. We had 13 kids at the regional track meet. Again, I can only speak to my tenure, but I think that was the first time in 12 years we actually had to take a bus to the regionals, because usually it's a van. So we only had 3 or 4 kids each year. So we had 13, all but maybe 1 are returners, or mostly underclassmen. So they've done really well. We had Jacob Bowles, who graduated, and then Abby Matthews, who was just a freshman, both ran at the state meet. So
those guys in Jacobs thing were really fast.
Yeah, I went extremely fast.
You were right in front of us.
Yeah, but great accomplishment. Jacob was a kid who didn't run track till he was a junior.
Yeah.
So I ended up making the state meet as a senior. Miscellaneous information I put together for you just to give you an idea. Last school year, grades 7 through 12, we had 399 kids play at least one sport. In the high school, and it's just a breakdown, 51% of high school kids play at least one sport, 49% at the middle school. In grades 7 through 12, just taking in all students, it's 44% are in at least one sport. Pay to participate, and again, forgive me if you already know this information, but the funds that we collect from pay to participate go directly to the general fund. They don't go to athletics, per se, the athletic account, I guess I should say. Those funds are used to offset the cost of coaching, supplemental contracts, and transportation. I would lean on Travis, but I would say that the monies collected for that do not completely cover the cost of those 2 items. I can't imagine, but that's where that money goes. I get that question a lot. And the current rate of $100 per student athlete was implemented in 12-13 school year and hasn't changed since then. It was at $50 in 06, went to 75, I think 3 years later, and then went to 100. It's stayed there pretty consistently since then. So
is that fairly consistent with other school districts?
It varies all over the place. There are some
larger ones can get pretty.
There are some that are 300 plus. There are some that don't have any. Just Hamilton Township, for example, doesn't have any. They just waived theirs maybe a year ago or so. So it's all over the place in Central Ohio. Either really expensive, down, some are 50, some have a $10 participation fee that just goes to athletics. So every kid pays $10 and it just helps fund the athletic account. So it's all over the board. Just a couple of tidbits on alumni, athletic alumni. Taryn Alvello was second team All-American in softball. They lost in the national championship game. So I had an opportunity to watch her on ESPN multiple times. And Sam Bordner, who played baseball here, was drafted by the Miami Marlins and signed his professional contract. So he was just a junior. Had Tommy John surgery. He anticipated being drafted much higher and had the surgery early in his baseball season. But he did get drafted. He did sign. So he's foregoing his senior year. He's going to work through the minors and try to live that dream. But again, pretty neat to see one of our kids social media, sign a professional contract, play athletics, so. Then on the back again, there's just some notes and facts. Looking through and trying to budget for this coming year, we use a program called Arbiter Pay. So we pay everybody electronically as far as our officials go, which is extremely convenient. It used to be, within 5 years, I physically carried a checkbook to the diamond and wrote the checks when they arrived at the game. Then we changed that, and Travis's department actually physically printed checks to try to take to the game. Now they just sign. I have to verify that they're there and they complete the contract, and we pay them online. So grade 7 through 12 for officials last year cost us just over $30,000 to pay officials. I always say this at our parent meeting too, but all of our game officials 7 through 12 are hired through an assigner through our league. So when I get the question of how come this guy always does our games and we get the short end of the stick, you hired him. I really didn't hire them. I pay them, but I don't hire them. So we do pay a fee for that. We pay fees that belong to the league. It's usually anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000 a year to be a member of the mid-state league. So and part of that is the signer's cost. Every year we recondition our football helmets. That's grades 7 through 12, and that fee will vary depending on how many helmets we have, how many helmets get rejected. But that's approximately $7,000 a year. So that's every helmet we've got, grade 7 through 12. So that's usually 125, 130 helmets. We send them all back. The factory tests them, make sure they're okay. We usually get 5 to 7% get rejected. They have hairline cracks or just some sort of defect we can't use anymore. That's how we determine how many we're gonna buy. We buy new helmets every year just in case, so we don't get in a cycle where we didn't buy and then we have to buy 20. The cost of helmets, like everything else, goes up astronomically every year. So like helmets we buy now are $350, $400 a helmet. We have 60 football players at $400 a helmet, so it goes quick. That's just high school. And cost of security, so our deputies that work our varsity football and varsity boys basketball is about $5,000. So if you just take officials, the reconditioning, and the deputies, that's about 40% of my allocated budget each school year before I ever buy a supply for anybody. So it's super expensive. So it's just one of those questions that I get a lot. So where does all the money go when you sell tickets? Where does that money go? Almost $40,000 just to those 3 items. So just for what that's worth. Just want to make you aware we are going to do a redesign of the Hall of Fame wall that's out here on this wall in the cafeteria. Right now there's just a banner that indicates it's a Hall of Fame and individual plaques. It's going to be more similar to what the All-Ohio wall looks like, more of a drop-in, and then they'll be able to include a little bit more biographical information on each person. And at the current, those plaques are about $160 a piece. This will be up front, more expensive, but obviously much easier to just get the digital photo and print out. It'll also allow us to look far into the future, kind of running out of space on that wall, or we'd end up all the way down by the exit, which we don't want to do. So it'll look much nicer and coordinate with that All-Ohio wall a little better as well. And again, I also plan to work with the athletic boosters. I know Greg Schaefer's here. We just met in July to talk about capital improvements. We're going to meet in early August to go through a plan of attack, if you will, so what we'd like to do this school year. The last thing I had is not on there, just talking with Mark Williams. This goes back to when this building was built. We did the oversized gymnasium and the turf at the field. And we talked about the ability to host neutral site events where other schools come in and we're not participating. So since 2013, we've had 38 events where there were neutral site. It's brought in $29,415 of revenue for the boosters. That's revenue, so profit is generally 50%. So they've made about $15,000 since 2013 on neutral site hosted events. So the facilities are certainly helping pay us back. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer.
I hate to say this, Mr. One, but he passed away 23 years ago. I'd rather prefer gray. I prefer gray. I'm Greg Schaefer, president of Athletic Boosters. This is just a 6th straight year. I thought I wouldn't be here this fall, but unfortunately, no one wanted to step up and take control. Well, in the spring, we purchased new baseball uniforms. That was about $6,000. Also cheerleading uniforms was another $4,400. We've just purchased, are going to pay back the track and football team $2,700 for a timer. This is where the athlete can go out and run on the track. He can get a base time for 100 yards, 200, 400, whatever. And then he can try to strive and improve his time as he progresses through his career. Also, baseball, we're going to spend another $8,000 for improvements to the backstop. We're going to put in a taller fence in front of the dugouts, because I guess there's too many foul balls because of the low fence going into the dugouts, and the possibility of somebody being injured. So that's going to run us about $8,000. If I missed anything, oh, and we purchased new uniforms for the soccer team. That was another $2,700. So, and then in April 1st or August 1st, we're going to have our organizational meeting on what we want to set our goals to do for the following year, on how we're going to spend our money, so on and so forth, with athletics, you know, teams need equipment, uniforms, so on. Then on August 4th is our annual booster drive. So everybody stay home, please. It seems like there's a lot of people, they just don't answer the doors anymore when you knock, even though we know they're home.
Well, they did that for the levy drive too, so.
Pardon?
They did that sometimes for the levy drive too.
Yeah, well, that's understandable, but we're cheaper.
Well, if you saw hot at your front door, I mean, come on. What?
And then in October, I'll be doing the fair again. This will be number 18 for me. And I'm gonna tell you up front, it may be the last time for the booster, because the profit in what we took in last year did not balance out very well. We had over $10,000 in expenses, and I cleared about $4,700. That's a little over $600 a day for the 7 days. And that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. Am I missing anything else?
No, the biggest thing, if you weren't aware, their biggest expense is uniforms. And they have a set cycle for uniforms. So every varsity team receives a new set of uniforms at least every 4 years. So every kid, if they play a sport for 4 years, at some point will wear a new uniform. So regardless of condition of uniforms, we have several sets of uniforms that probably could last more than 4 years, but they're gracious enough to buy those uniforms, and we notify coaches at a time when they're up, and they've always done that for us. So every kid at least has an opportunity to do that, which is a nice thing that we are able to provide.
And that's all I have. Our next booster meeting will be the 11th of August. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
I'll send you the bill.
Okey dokey. Anyone else for public participation? You came in later, sir. Do you want to say anything during?
Just observing.
Just observing, just like this one here. Okay. Number 7, treasurer's recommendations and reports.
Item 7A is approve the June financial statements, total expense of $8,256,768.20. Of that, nearly $6.5 million in South Central Ohio Insurance Consortium expenses. I did not put an executive summary or an enrollment report for obvious reasons in this month's financial statements. The majority of the summarization will be in item B for the fiscal summary report, so I'll be brief on the financials. Any questions? I know Mr. Millis had a couple questions that we addressed. Any other questions on the report for June or the checks written during the month?
Seeing none, is there a motion? So moved. I'll second this one, since I had the questions to start out with. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Millis?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Item B is approve the fiscal 2018 financial summary report. Begins on page 32 on the electronic copy. And basically, as we normally try to do in a succinct way, is put together the pertinent information to really kind of to summarize the fiscal year, something that we can be concise with and publish on our website for anybody who kind of wants to get a brief look at how we did with the fiscal year. And quite simply, again, on page 32, you've got your general fund operating revenues, your general fund operating expenditures. As you can see by the skin of our teeth, so to speak, we did have another operating surplus for the 6th consecutive year, albeit $25,231, but still it goes in the books as a surplus. From an accountability standpoint, we like to go back and look at where we were with the October 5-year. And really, we weren't that far off. We had projected a little over 121,000, almost 122,000 in the October 5-year, so just about $96,000 difference there. You look at the change in revenues and expenditures. This is also shown in the monthly financials, but our revenues grew, but obviously our expenditures grew by more than that. So certainly that's a trend that we need to address. Our carryover at June 30th, $3,666,587. We have not a board policy, but we do have some internal goals of where we like to see that carryover in relationship to our overall budget. Normally that sits at about 20%, or how many days of cash if we never got another dime in of revenue, how long could we last and meet our expenses, and you try to have about 60 days cash on hand, and you can see kind of how we compare with those goals there. Pretty close. I've got the expenditures by department. I won't go through that a lot. You see that basically every month, and then also by object. Certainly we track how much we are spending on direct instruction, and you can see that's 54.26%. The report card might vary a little bit from that. They use a little different formula than we do, but it should be very close. Pages 2 and 3, 33 and 34 on the electronic, just kind of goes a deeper dive down into both the revenues and expenditures. We've gone through this a lot, so I won't go through it, but it just compares it this year compared to last year compared to the original forecast. We were over. We brought in more revenue than we had anticipated from the October forecast there at the bottom in yellow by 2.24%. And if you go to page 3 on the expenditures, again, you can see we're very close to the original forecast on salaries, benefits, curriculum, materials, and other. We've talked about the purchase services and capital outlay throughout the year, and we knew that those were two areas that went above and beyond what we had anticipated, but still within 2.75%. Going back 9 months ago, so not a lot of huge surprises in fiscal 18. The last 2 pages of the report are just kind of some summaries on some information that you really don't see throughout the year, but I think they're important. We have to track them anyway, so I think it's good to convey to the board and the public. First one is our transportation, looking at how many route miles we drive, how many trip miles we drive. In fiscal 18, we drove almost 17,000 less route miles. That's line 8 there. A lot of that was due to the Route 33 interchange last year. We had some detours and some longer routes. Trip miles, much to my surprise, I think everybody and Mr. Little can back this up, says, I can't believe how many trips were taken. But every year we're right at that 29,000 mile mark, and this year was no different. So the trips are actually pretty consistent from year to year. Average miles per gallon, average dollars per gallon, those are really out of our control. We did purchase a 3rd van this year. We already had 2 vans. So going back to when we got a little pushback from going back to when we used money to purchase the vans, but because of that, we've tried to track how much money we've saved by driving van miles and routes as opposed to bus. This year, our vans drove a total of 57,821 miles. Average miles per gallon on the van, 17.45 compared to a bus of 7.55. Unleaded was a little more than diesel this year, but still, when you take it down and you do the math on it, we saved $9,806.27.
Drove the same amount of miles?
No, that's what I'm saying. If we would have driven those same 57,000 with the bus, yeah. And the cumulative savings going back to when we first purchased the vans, almost $92,000, and that they've already paid for themselves, even the one that we already purchased. So the last page, again, just some pertinent information that comes up a lot. If you get questions about it, we talked about our open enrollment. We are still a net gaining school district, but that number continues to drop as our resident student population has increased. Fiscal 18, we had 131 students in, 46 out, for a net gain of 85. That's the lowest in and out, actually, since I've been here. But again, we're still gaining on a net basis. And we look at the numbers in all 13 grade levels, and we'll just try to balance that out. Community school enrollment has dropped as well. We're just down to 38 leaving, which has been nice. Food service is an area of concern, quite frankly. We'll talk about that more when we get to Mr. Hahn's section with the lunch prices going into next year. But the food service operates in and of itself on a net income and loss basis. And for this year, they actually had a net loss of $7,215.17. So they are actually down to $6,047.53.
Is that coming on Hahn's salary?
No.
No vacation for you now.
Yeah. By law, if need be, the general fund has to subsidize the food service fund via a transfer. And certainly, we want to avoid that if possible, but that might have to be the case next year. So, any questions? Again, we'll publish this report online. We'll publish the first page normally in our newsletter, or at least on the front page of the website for public consumption. But any questions on fiscal 2018 summary?
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Ms. Parker and Mr. Abbott. A roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis? Item C, we're happy to recognize the donation from Paul Jackson in the amount of $25 to the Bloom Carroll cheerleading in honor and memory of Leah Jackson.
Any questions? Motion to approve? So moved. Thank you. Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes.
And finally, just a quick update. There's no action item here, but on Friday, July 13th, Mr. Hahn and myself at our financial advisor's office, Umball, downtown Columbus, conducted about a 90 to 100-minute phone interview with Standard & Poor's. Standard & Poor's is one of the two biggest bond rating agencies in the United States, along with Moody's. Basically, they will issue us a rating. It's basically a credit rating. So the better the rating, the more secure the investments are, and the lower interest rate that we'll be able to issue our bonds. Thought the presentation went well. We did get some questions. I thought we were able to address them. They will be issuing their rating on Thursday morning. It'll normally come out in a report. I'll forward it to you. We are currently, the last rating we had was a AA minus. Just from kind of the initial indications, it sounds like we're probably going to be there again. We are in a credit enhancement program. You had already approved that resolution. So of the $30 million, $24 million of them were able to fit under the credit enhancement program, which guarantees you a AA. If we were to get a AA anyway, we could save the credit enhancement for a future issuance of bonds. We'll just have to see how that falls out, but we have that in our back pocket if need be. On July 31st, and certainly our financial team, if you would like to attend, or Mr. Mellis, at 8:30 a.m. we are meeting again at Umball. They're at 175 South 3rd Street. I'll send that out in an email so you have it on file. We will be there to actually put the bonds on the market. Baird is our underwriter. They will be there. They will be on teleconference with their desk in Milwaukee. We are not traveling to Milwaukee. We just felt like with the timing and the cost that it was more prudent to do the sale, or for us to be here in Columbus. The bonds will actually hit the market at 9 a.m. and they look for the bonds to be on the market until about 11:30 a.m.
So why Milwaukee and not New York? Or?
That's Baird's desk. Their desk is in Milwaukee, their trading desk. If anybody local, I've had 2 people call and I forwarded their information to Baird. Anybody local is interested in purchasing the bonds, you're probably going to need a financial advisor, but if you know of anyone or even if any of you want to purchase the bonds, let me know. I'll get you hooked up, and they can produce that. The ability to get first, kind of a first come, first serve on our bonds.
5,000,
It's 5,000 minimum denomination.
So what kind of fig, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Travis and I talked briefly about it, we needed to talk more this week, but, obviously, they'll be priced on the 31st, but we have had a few phone calls, he's had a few, I had several, right after we passed the issue, and we had talked about maybe just updating our website, getting something out on social media that if anybody in the community is interested in purchasing on the 31st, that they need to contact our financial advisor at Baird. So we were gonna put that together, probably later this week. Obviously, they're not going to sell 24 or even $6 or $30 million worth of bonds to local, private retail investors, but, they'll sell some. So that opportunity will be there, and we're gonna try to get that out.
So I noticed reading through what I did read, closely enough, that it mentioned 6%, so is 6% what you think it'll be, or it'll be less than that?
Where was that? I'm sorry.
I think I marked it, but I don't remember where.
No, it'll be
It's in the
much
resolution.
less than
I think it's in the
6%.
resolution.
It'll be much less than 6%.
That's what I thought.
I think it can't exceed.
It cannot exceed
Can't
6%.
exceed 6%.
It should be around 4.2%. We put the amount on the ballot, assuming 5%. So we were conservative. I look for it to be around 4.2.
Still for bonds, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Although I've had some that actually did a little bit better, and some that didn't do as well. I know. Okay, any questions, further questions? So what was it like doing the presentation?
It was good. It's a good experience. You know, we had worked well with our municipal advisor, Unball. We had several meetings with them, and we felt prepared going in. Travis and I went on for about 90 minutes. We each probably presented evenly. I kind of did more of a district overview, kind of a background on Fairfield County, the economy, our district in general, our philosophy, what we're doing well in, areas of concern. You try to stay away from that, but they're good at what they do. They ask about the areas of concern.
I was wondering about what they asked you.
And then Travis obviously knows district financials inside and out, and did a very good job with that as well. So it was about 90 minutes.
Okay, that's all I have. Okay, next we have number 8, old business. Do we have any old business to come to the board? Other than A, I can take it, approve the following policies for a second reading, which Rod and I were at the meeting when we had our last policy meeting. Did you get the email that the gentleman sent me about wanting to be on, I think this gentleman, wanting to talk to me about policies, nurses, because he's taking some class with that. He's a district resident, has kids here, et cetera. You don't remember that?
Yeah, I don't recall.
Okay,
I don't think so.
we'll do that anyway. But I could not think of any that recently dealt with school nurses anyway. Does anyone have any questions about these? This is for the second reading, so we are approving these basically, right? Yeah. Says approved, okay. Anyone have any questions? Most of them are, you know, our arm is twisted behind our back and we have to do these, regardless of whether you kind of like it or not. Okay, seeing none then, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay. I'll second since I'm on the committee. Roll call, please.
Ms. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Okay, superintendent's recommendations and reports.
All right, just a couple things to kind of keep you updated on. First of all, Mr. Schaefer, Greg, Chad, thanks for presenting, good job.
Yes.
I did meet with Mr. Schaefer. I just want to acknowledge, I don't know if there's actually people that listen to our board meetings. I hope that they are, because they usually aren't packed, but I hope people are staying informed. So I just want to acknowledge the work that the Athletic Boosters and the Music Boosters does for the school district. And while we're here with the Athletic Boosters, I want to thank Mr. Schaefer for years of leadership and commitment and service to the district. We talked about some things a couple weeks ago, or a little over a week ago. We do need more volunteers. Keep in mind, Mr. Schaefer loves the school district, but he doesn't have any kids, grandkids participating at this time in any athletics. Mark Williams does not either, and Barb Kozer is, her daughter is graduating in May, just graduated this past May. And it would be great to see some young families hear this and get involved in the boosters. When we say we need volunteers, we really need volunteers to get involved. And the boosters meetings are on the second Monday of the month. And we talked about a number of things. We're going to try to help with communication. We have a lot of resources, electronic media, print media, that we can try to help the boosters and continue to reiterate that we need volunteers to get involved. And we'd like to see some young families with kids in middle school sports or early in high school, so we can sustain, 5 or 6 years of leadership and see new families come in and help. But, they work tirelessly. They raise a lot of funds. The world evolves, and so does the way you raise funds. Mr. Schaefer talked about the Fairfield County Fair concern, and that's been a tradition. It's something that we appreciate and would love to see continue, but there's other ways that they're finding out to generate a lot of revenue in a few hours compared to a week of work, but we need volunteers. Go ahead.
You were talking about the money. I forgot also to read you that for the United races, it was a little over 24,000
in 3 hours. So,
and one other thing I forgot to mention, January of 2019 will be the last payment of concession.
Oh, good.
yeah. So people need to realize that our concession stand is financed by the athletic boosters and music boosters, and they will have that paid off in January ahead of schedule. And they've helped with the stadium entrance to really dress up our facilities quite a bit.
You mean free bratwurst sometime in the future?
Pardon?
Does that mean free bratwurst at the football match?
What, for me?
No, for me. for the thing. For you, yes.
So we need parents to get involved. We need other community members to also get involved and help out and share that responsibility. We're looking at the future, and the boosters will hold their meetings and look at opportunities for improvements to our athletic facilities and how to support our student athletes, more than what they're already doing. But they have a number of things to discuss, whether they focus on some smaller projects and pay off the concession stand, or whether they look at larger projects that, of course, the board would work in conjunction with and essentially approve. So I just want to thank the boosters and Mr. Schaefer for the work they do. So thank you. Also, I would like to kind of give a verbal update here on just some good news. Last month, we were notified by the U.S. News and World Report that our high school received a silver award for one of the nation's best high schools. It is based on the 15-16 data. I don't know why it takes so long to update. But this is a good thing for us to promote to our community and to the local area. The rankings are done based upon whether students are leaving high school ready for college and careers, and also in reading and math proficiency, AP participation, again, college opportunities, graduation rate has to exceed at least 80%. We're at 98% that particular year, but we've been consistently 97, 98% with our graduation rate for several years now. What all this means is that nationally, only 2% of the schools, over 20,500 high schools, only 2% received a gold rating, 11% received a silver rating, 16% received a bronze, and 71% received no award. What that means is the U.S. News and World Report ranked us 103rd out of 822 schools in Ohio. That includes the public and private high schools, STEM schools, charter schools. That puts us in the top 12%. And then in the that's in Ohio. And then in the nation, they had us, I don't know how they determine the difference between one digit and the next, but 2,283rd out of 20,500 puts us in the top 11%. So again, very proud of the students and staff and the families that have contributed to that recognition. So it's a good thing for our community. With other summer items, we're still hiring a few positions. We've got a couple middle school positions we'll be wrapping up here hopefully this week, and we'll have for you at the next board meeting. I've sent you pictures of the high school roof. The project had been delayed because of the extremely poor weather in July. I think it rained over 20 out of 30 days in July. So they got delayed on a previous project. They jumped over here to ours. And last week they made a lot of good progress because the weather was very dry. The rest of the week I think looks good, so they'll continue to make progress. I sent you pictures to your email so you can see the work being done. But they've already got half of it torn off and an overlay put on. So, hopefully that target date of August 10th, they'll be able to work long days and get caught up. If not, we'll come up with a contingency. It won't impact whether we can have school or not, but we'll just see how much work they get done in the next couple of weeks. The elementary school update, a lot of people ask, what are you guys doing? Sometimes the perception may be is that a lot is not being done and we're just twiddling our thumbs, but people need to understand that school construction projects, and this is a $30 million project. To a lot of districts, it can be very small. To our community, it's a very large project, but these things take time. I just want to kind of let everybody know. Travis updated everybody on where we were with the bonds. That's the most important part. You got to be able to finance your plan, and you got to sell bonds. That's kind of the first step, and you can't encumber and pay invoices or be invoiced and pay out of that until you sell your bonds and close those, and you have that account set up. So just know that Travis, his leadership, I've been working with him on the financing side, and we've gone over all those dates. With design services, obviously, we had a preliminary design agreement with Shore Architects to do some pre-bond issue planning, and then also, once it led into passage, we had firms ranked with Shore, and Tony and Shore Architects in our construction council, we have all been working to get our design service agreement finalized, and we had to work with OFCC using some modified documents. We used some AIA documents, and we had talked about that in planning sessions. But that is on the agenda for tonight to approve that agreement with Shore Architects. And obviously, we are doing the CMR process, the at-risk process with our construction manager. And a lot of people aren't aware of it, but we've already put the RFQ out there. The legal notice has gone out. That started July 2nd. The deadline's August 1st. We've had firms contact. Travis is the contact when we do legal notices. So he's been sending out a description. I sent it to you guys, just kind of a description of our process for accepting submissions, and then narrowing down a short list of firms. They have to be a minimum of 3 construction manager firms, and then we ask for proposals, and then we have an evaluation committee, which our facility management liaisons are on. We have a couple dates for those meetings, August 16th and August 30th. If both of you can make it, that's great. If one of you could be there, that's great. But obviously, those meetings will be done at 9, 10, 11 in the morning. We'll have some discussion beforehand and after. I provided a worksheet how we can rank the firms to determine which ones we request proposals from. But that's a little bit about the timeline. And so we've been working on construction manager, design services, selling bonds, legal counsel. Those are all things you've got to get in place. When you look at some good things that have happened recently, when we started this planning process in our master facility plan, and we narrowed down which plan we were going with to present to the voters, some things changed, and the state of Ohio required that we had to build a storm shelter with the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, and statute required us to build storm shelters, which on this project would run about $550,000 to $600,000. Well, that was included in the $30 million that we said we were going to need. There was a bill signed, House Bill 21, on June 29th by the governor, putting a moratorium on the enforcement of storm shelters. So that $500,000 built in now is backed out because there's several districts that were impacted. They actually passed their bond issues, and then we're told they had to put a storm shelter in. For some of these districts, that's millions of dollars because they're building multiple schools. Well, that's not real fair that they couldn't ask their voters for that, and now it was cutting into their budget. So for us, it's essentially around $550,000 back into our budget that we do not have to build a storm shelter.
Another drop the banner kind of thing they had years ago.
Yeah, and those things impact sometimes what you can do, but I wanted to update you that the governor signed that bill, so that helps our project a little bit. That's good news. In terms of time frame, I want everybody to keep in mind, I explained this to the board in an email, the new elementary school project, obviously, we have a timeline that I emailed out to you. We worked with our legal counsel and our architect to come up with this timeline, and it is the same timeline with details that we talked about back in October when Tony Shore was here and Glenn Decker and engineering and, architectural and engineering services that we were consulting with. And we said that this project would break ground probably in the summer of 2019, and we would move into the building in August of 21. That would be the first school year that it was open. And I know that seems hard to fathom that it's so far out, but our time frame hasn't changed at all. If you think back to this middle school project, this issue passed to build this middle school in November of 2009, and the building opened in January of 2013. That was 38 months. So that punch list and the commissioning still hadn't taken place until the fall of 2013, because I came here as a middle school principal in August, and we were undergoing with Dr. Landis and Travis and our construction manager at the time, and we were going through that commissioning and punch list when we had students in the building from January to May.
Right.
And then again, when we
That's when I
started
first got
school in
involved.
August, we were still going through construction work in this building. So that was over a 40-month project, okay? With our timeline, we passed this issue in May of 2018, and we're gonna be done in March of 2021, and that includes, the building will be done in January of 21, and then we have to do the commissioning and punch list. That takes a couple more months. That takes us to March of 2021. That's a 34-month process, okay? So that puts the building 100% complete, but people have to remember, you gotta sell bonds, you gotta design the building. There's early site work that you have to do, and that will take place. The early site work is on schedule to take place in July of 2019, in full construction beginning in November of 2019. That full construction phase goes 14 months, taking us to January of 21, and then you have the punch list, the commissioning, and then we have full ownership. We take over the building in March of 21. You know, with construction projects, and we have a gentleman here tonight that could speak on this, you have weather delays, you have other delays that happen. For projects to be ahead of schedule, it's rare. I would love for that to happen, but you know, I want to make sure that people understand our time frame that we're presenting is a 34-month process compared to previous ones that took 38 months, 40 months, 42 months. So as frustrating as it can be, we're right on track. We're accomplishing each step along the way. And, you know, we'll start the programming phase. There's 4 different stages of design, and we will start the programming stage in late August after the bonds close. We'll be working with our executive committee, and then we will have design teams set up where we have teacher representatives and principals, and the buildings will have their say. We will offer community opportunities, probably 3 or 4 throughout the next, between August.
Starting when? August?
Yeah, from September through the spring, we will probably offer 3 to 4 opportunities at each design phase. But in that design phase, you know, you've got the programming, then you have the schematic design phase, and then you have the design development, and then you have construction documents. So each phase has to be approved by the board. And your construction manager has to review that as well, and you have to give them time. So we'll work with Tony Shore, get one stage done, then your construction manager has time to review it, they make adjustments, then the board approves it, then we move on to the next stage. And I just wanted to make sure that I kind of gave a thorough explanation.
I was asking a few questions, getting my haircut at Rex's in Canal, even though it's out of the district. I had several people. There were 2 people, Rex and somebody else. Well, I might as well.
Yeah, people say, you know,
you an email and
why does it take so long? And
I explained some of that to them.
it does, and you can't just go build your own building that one person wants. You got to include people in it. You got to listen to experts, and you got state statute that you have to follow. So just believe me, we're working hard, and we're probably ahead of schedule right now. So hopefully, once we enter the project, weather will be fine, no delays, and we'll keep moving through. Okay.
Be nice and cool like it was last week and all that.
Yeah. So, any questions about anything academically or?
Or all those things on the website are going to be on the website about like this whole calendar thing of what is coming up.
Well,
I think it needs to be out there. Not that people are going to read it.
And remember, I'm going to do some updates to our facilities page this August when we head back, and I've also in an address back to the community at the beginning of the year. I'm going to update them. Obviously, I'm not going to go into every single detail of your timeline, but the big picture things about early site work, the planning phases, the early site work.
That's all I'm talking about.
When the building will be done, that thing we will be communicating. But it's already on our website because it was in our facilities presentation that we communicated throughout the levy campaign. So we're still right there, but we'll get some things updated. So moving on to 9B, students and programs, approve the 2018-19 fees for the following classes. 1A, the high school fees, number 1 through 18 as presented. There are no changes there. And then B, the middle school fees, no increase in fees from last year once again for 1 through 4 grades, which would be grades 5 through 8. The school fees for the intermediate school, item C, no increase in fees from last year as well. And then the primary school, D, which is also a supply and technology fee like the intermediate school, there's no increase in those fees from last year as well. Number 2, approve the following cafeteria prices for the 18-19 school year. Breakfast prices remain unchanged. Lunch prices, we do have to do an increase in K-8 lunches. They were $2.75. Those will be going to $2.90. And then high school and adults are $3 each. That remains unchanged. The K-8 is a 15-cent increase. There's a few reasons why. Travis actually deals with the accounting of the lunch and the federal dollars we receive for free and reduced lunch. But we were told we were short in what we were actually getting from the federal government. They said we needed to be collecting $2.86, and we were at $2.75. So we'll see an increase to $2.90. That, Travis, is there anything you want to add?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. They expect a certain level of maintenance of effort for you to collect X amount of dollars in relationship to what they're giving you, and we were low on that.
Okay. And then item number 3, approve the dates of April 18th through the 23rd, 2019 for a varsity softball team trip to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We do not have an itinerary for you. We will bring that back for approval in finalizing that trip, but what we are approving are the dates. That way we can get the charter bus agreement deposit done and get that reserved, okay? So I think that's it under those items.
Anyone have any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes. Personnel.
Okay, under C, personnel and employment, number 1, approve the employment of Tracy Tallarico as an ELA teacher at the middle school on an initial sequence 1-year limited contract at step 5 with a bachelor's degree with 150 semester hours for the 18-19 school year, pending timely receipt of verifications and background checks effective August 13th, 2018, pending acceptance of agenda item 9F1, which will be resignation of Zachary Nieder. Number 2, approve the employment of Kayla Fowler as an intervention teacher at the intermediate school on an initial sequence 1-year limited contract at step 1 with a bachelor's degree for the 18-19 school year, pending timely receipt of verifications and background checks effective August 13th, 2018, pending acceptance of agenda item 9F2, which is the resignation of Kristen Raypool. We had a candidate accept the job and then very quickly resign, and we were able to fill that position with a few more interviews. Number 3, approve the voluntary transfer of Jenna Lee McKinney from 8th grade math teacher to high school math teacher effective August 13th, 2018, pending acceptance of agenda item 9F6, which is the resignation of Caitlin Wood, and I would like to thank her for her 5 years to the district. Approve the employment of Kate Kemple, Ms. Kemple's here with us, as a 2.5 hours a day lunchroom monitor at the intermediate school on a 1-year limited contract at step 0 for the 18-19 school year to fill the vacancy created by the voluntary transfer of Billy Sutton. Number 5, approve the employment of Carrie Horn as a 4.25 hours per day cook at the high school on a 1-year limited contract, step 1 for the 18-19 school year, and that is to fill the vacancy created by the voluntary transfer of Mariah Storrs. Number 6, approve the following Ohio Teacher Evaluation System evaluators for the 18-19 school year as presented, A through F. Number 7, approve the following middle school detention monitors for the 18-19 school year as presented, A through J. Number 8, approve the employment of Janice Raver as a substitute lunchroom monitor for the 18-19 school year. Number 9, approve the employment of Angela D. Felice as a substitute aide, lunchroom monitor and cook, secretary, custodian, bus aide, and van driver. Number 10, approve Holly Probst, with Walden University for a guidance counseling internship with Amy Moore at the high school during the 18-19 school year. Number 11, approve Holly Tucker for a 25 hours of field experience with Joe Carter in high school science during the 18-19 school year. Number 12, approve amending the 18-19 athletic supplemental contracts of Mark Williams, varsity boys golf, Group C with 1 year experience from 100% to 50%. Number 13, approve the following athletic supplemental contracts for the 18-19 school year, pending timely receipt of all verifications and background checks as presented A through J. There are a couple items pending resignation. Chad, are we in good shape with all the fall hires?
Yeah.
We don't have any more?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Number 14, approve the following athletic department volunteers for the 18-19 school year, pending timely receipt of all verifications and background checks as presented A through G.
I have a question that since Chad's here, he can answer it. Being the JV golf coach at Groveport for 3 years, why would somebody only want to be the varsity boys coach for 50%? Just out of curiosity. If you can't say, it's fine.
Who was it?
On D.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's because we added Steve Anna Hansley. He's got the other 50%. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
So they're just sharing the
They're
supplemental.
just sharing the supplemental.
Yeah,
Okay.
just share something.
I mean, it's a short season, is my point.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, they,
Second week of October, you're done.
yeah, they sort of, co-coach, I guess, for lack of better terms. We have a middle school club team.
Oh.
And so our varsity girls coach, JV boys coach, those guys and gals help cover some of the middle school practices, some of the middle, because it's not a school sport per se,
Right.
but they still are
They still
actively
get to
involved.
play under school. Thank you. Okay, is there any discussion? Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes.
Okay, D, under contracts and agreements, approve a charter bus contract for the varsity softball team trip to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, April 18th through the 23rd. Again, that's for the bus. We approved the dates, and then this one's for the bus contract. Number 2, approve a design service agreement with Shore Architects for professional design services related to the elementary school construction project.
And we haven't voted on it. Any questions on, or discussion on these items? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? Move. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
And Mr. Mellis?
Yes.
Okay, nothing under E, and moving on to 9F, personnel resignations and retirements. Accept the resignation of Zach Nieder as a 7th grade ELA teacher effective immediately. Number 2, accept the resignation of Kristen Brakepool as intervention specialist at the intermediate school effective immediately. Number 3, accept the resignation of Janelle Kaufman as middle school study hall monitor effective immediately. Number 4, accept the resignation of Scott Bartholomew as 7th grade assistant football coach for the 18-19 school year. Accept the resignation of Natalie Billingsley as an 8th grade volleyball coach for the 18-19 school year. Number 6, accept the resignation of Keaton Wood as a high school math teacher effective immediately. And number 7, accept the resignation of Jay Brown as varsity assistant girls basketball coach for the 18-19 school year. I should have said earlier that appreciate the service of all these individuals to our district.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
And number 10, new business. A, approve a resolution adopting a Calamity Day makeup plan. Do we have that in here?
It's in your packet.
Well,
And that's the, year after year now, for about the past 4 or 5 years, the state of Ohio, revised code allows you to make up the equivalent hours for 3 school days. We do that, so if we cancel school on the 3rd day or 5th day or 8th day, we would use online assignments or paper copies called wizard bags. rather than just having our students miss potentially 8 days without any instruction, so. We were lucky this past winter, we didn't have too many days.
Right.
It's on page 128. The only requirement now is that the teachers' union signs off an agreement, and that letter is also in your packet. That's page 128.
Okay. And B, we have approved a resolution designating authorized representative for construction and delegating authority to make project decisions to the superintendent and director. C, approve the resolution amending resolution 98.18 to provide change of interest payment and principal payment dates. And D, approve the cancellation of the Board of Education planning session scheduled for July 25th, 2018. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing one, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Mellis?
Yes. 11, we have board reports and information. Anything with facility management? Not yet.
Just those dates we talked about.
Personnel and labor management, no, this is where you have the contract. 3 OSBA representative. Okay. No rubber chicken to report on, okay. Policy, we had one a while back, so.
Yeah, PDQ in August, will be late August or, yeah, probably late August.
Safety, health, and wellness. And finance.
Okay.
Upcoming PTO booster and education meetings. Board of Education regular meeting on 8/6/18. Teacher professional development on 8/13. Teacher workday 8/14 and 8/15, which seems really early to me. First day of school. I had people ask me about this more than the building, and I said, why is it so early? I said, well, you gotta have the time off for, you know, for Christmas, spring break. You've got the fair in there a couple days, professional development, etc. I said, I believe, of course I know I'm much older than you other board members, but I believe that when I went to school, I believe it was 170 days, because we didn't, you know, you're lucky you got Good Friday off, and the next Monday, that was spring break. And Christmas break was about as short as it could be, so I'm thinking maybe it was 170 days, because we started the day after Labor Day, and by Memorial Day, you went back to school, you were cleaning out your desk, you know, having an ice cream bar and leaving early, so.
We'll have a calendar process starting this November, and have to get one approved this winter for the next school year, or the next two. Whatever you guys want to do.
Well, next two is fine with me. First day of school and the Board of Education planning session. Who are you planning to bring to speak with us?
We might bring in Sylvia and Tony at
Okay,
that
that'd be
point. We still will be in that construction manager process, so I think when we hire,
Right.
or, you know, approve an agreement with the construction manager, we'll probably in September at our planning session, bring that individual, or that firm in. Just make note that the August